So just please be patient and let everybody sign in and get comfortable. And we should have a very good day today. We have some exciting stuff. So we'll be back shortly. Give us about 30 to 45 seconds. Good day, everyone. I'm Parker Yates. I'm going to be your host today. Welcome to another webinar hosted by DevOps.com. DevOps.com has a privilege of having with us today Dan from CloudBees and Victor from XebiaLabs. These are both outstanding companies that will focus today on continuous delivery, specifically how to ensure quality within that mission. And with that, you can see the bios of both the speakers today. And at this point, I'll turn it over to Victor to begin the presentation. And welcome, everyone, and thank you for coming.
Hey, thanks, partner. This is Victor Klerk from XebiaLabs, and I would like to talk to you about the real essence of having test automation as a key part of continuous delivery. You might not recall it directly, but we are using Agile across the board for many years now. But in fact, the first principle of the Agile Manifesto states continuous delivery very clearly. It states our highest priority is to satisfy the customer through early and continuous delivery of available software. This in fact means that we need to speed up our development cycle, because the only way to really add value to our customers is by putting software in small deliveries live as soon as possible. So throughout the years, we've seen lots and lots of investments and developments in order to achieve continuous delivery. Taking the next step into continuous delivery, what in fact is it? First of all, the main question is how to get a good idea as quickly as possible to production. We need to get a link onto the marketing departments, onto the business development departments of most organizations to spot these ideas and to really swiftly turn these into valuable software and deliver that. Basically, this means that the move of valuable software to production is, and it should be, a business decision. IT should optimize itself in such a way that the go-live decision ultimately is a business decision, which is also based on marketing developments, onto competitive analysis. And this in fact means that we need to provide, as an IT organization, we need to provide the business sound go-live advices across our continuous delivery chain. So this means that we need to move away from the more traditional delivery in which we group functionality in more bigger releases, which are released, let's say, monthly or bi-monthly, which also causes well, some excitement, some tension, release weekends, major decisions, long contemplations. We need to transform this into a more continuous flow of release of small changes that can add value directly, including bug fixes, but also including the really competitive time to market issues in which we can outrun our competition by delivering value earlier to customers and then win customers instead of seeing our customers move to competition. Continuous delivery is based upon three base principles. These principles are the following. First, we need to focus on rigorous automation. In the need to deliver value more often and more quickly, we need to use automation to speed up our development process. This all in all means automated builds, automated provisioning of various environments, automated deploys of our valuable releases onto these different environments, and running automated tests to verify whether or not the release is of sufficient quality. We need to automate in order to prevent persons or discussions or the process from being the bottleneck, really to make an automated go live. The second principle focuses on extreme feedback. When we basically take the waste out of the equation, we are able to speed up our delivery process. But we cannot do this without having a clear insight into the feedback we get from this continuous delivery pipeline, so to say. So we need to know at every point during the process, from the build perspective, from the provisioning perspective, from the deployment perspective and from the test perspective, we need to understand when something goes wrong. And in fact, you might say we are willing to see things go wrong, because then we can take action on it. The third principle is to continuously change based on the feedback we observe. We can then adapt our process, we can then add more tests, we can then make more sophisticated deployments along the pipeline to increase the quality. We are able to fail fast in continuous delivery, and perhaps if we do that more often, we're able to improve our delivery cycle so that we are adding more and more value in the future. So these base principles really form the foundation of continuous delivery. I'll now hand over the presentation to Dan so that he can explain more about CD pipelines as part of the application lifecycle. There you go, Dan.
All right, thanks, Victor, very much. So yeah, let's dive a little bit deeper into this notion of continuous delivery and talk about kind of what does it mean in more detail. Victor touched on a couple of the key aspects here. One is automation, using automation. And one way to think about continuous delivery is really thinking about applying to IT and to the application lifecycle the same lessons that have been learned by the manufacturing industries over the past 30 or 40 years or so. The automotive industry in particular adopted a lot of principles around lean manufacturing and techniques like Kanban that allowed them to really streamline the process of delivering products by producing the smaller changes and incrementally moving these changes through the manufacturing plant floor, if you will, through the life cycle. And what they also did was leverage a lot of automation, right? So if you look at manufacturing plants today, the Tesla Motor Company automotive plant, for example, is all automated, right? And they use robots to do everything. So you can think about applying those same techniques to application development and the delivery of applications and the application lifecycle. So applying automation, using automation to do that same process, to streamline the process, to automate the process of taking your raw materials, your developed code, your code commits from developers, and pushing those code changes all the way through the lifecycle until they ultimately get to production. And as Victor said, you want to do this maybe perhaps in small changes because you have less risk with small changes. So continuous delivery is about using automation to take those code changes, to build the application and pull in the dependencies, to run a full suite of tests from everything from unit to functional to user acceptance testing, and then to deploy the code into the different staging environments and then on to production. And then, of course, as Victor mentioned as well, have a full feedback loop at every step of the process so that everybody involved, the operations and the development teams, understands what's happening, and when something goes wrong, they we'll be able to know where it happened and who can fix it. So if we look at this in one step more granular detail, we think about how applications are developed and how developers work. They're writing code all the time, right? They're making code changes. They're maybe developing a small new feature. They're writing this code to achieve a goal, and then they check that code into the source code control system. So continuous delivery is the process by which each of those check-ins is pulled out and run through what's called a pipeline. So CD involves creating pipelines for your application code that takes them through all these stages. And so the pipelines will take the checked-in code, run the builds, do the test, and do the deployments, and then the next bit of code that's checked in by perhaps a different developer runs through its own pipeline, right? So that's the notion of continuous delivery, is setting up a system that can manage these pipelines and running a pipeline for every single check-in and every single change to the application. Ultimately, making these changes available for release to production if you want to have it do that. One of the things you'll notice if we is one thing that's central and important to this continuous delivery process is test, right? It's the tests sit right in the center of these pipelines. It's a huge part of the automation process is running these automated tests so that you're validating the quality of the code. So Victor, I'll turn it over to you to touch on this slide and talk about test automation.
Yeah, right. Thanks, Dan. So basically, test automation, or in fact testing, serves as the quality sensors in your continuous delivery pipeline. I think Dan did a good explanation of the different stages that are important. And while your delivery is progressing across the different stages, let's say system testing, functional testing, regression testing, performance testing, all these kinds of tests you need to ensure you need to run them swiftly by means of automation, and you need to be able to act upon them. So test automation basically is can be seen as the key driver for continuous delivery. Can I progress to the next stage? The real question is, are we able to proceed based on all the results of all the automated tests across multiple tools you might run across different times? So this is really a key important aspect. And throughout the remainder of the webinar, we will touch upon some of the key aspects which can be used in order to achieve continuous delivery using test automation and managing all the test results. Thanks, Dan. Yeah, so maybe just...
So let's do...
Yeah, sorry for that. We will now focus on some of the key ingredients that are will allow you to basically bridge both worlds, focusing on continuous delivery and managing pipelines through Jenkins, and the use of XebiaLabs software called XL TestView, which allows you to focus on all the test results and to make sense of all these test results. Thank you.
Great. So as mentioned earlier, I'm with CloudBees, and CloudBees is the enterprise Jenkins company. Jenkins is an open source automation engine, essentially, that's used very widely for continuous integration and continuous delivery. CloudBees provides the enterprise version of Jenkins and allows large organizations to really move forward and advance their CI and their CD efforts. So Jenkins started originally and was used principally for continuous integration. What does that mean? Continuous integration is really the front part of continuous delivery. It was created about 10 years ago in order to automate the process that was a kind of a manual and tedious process historically. When a developer checked in code, somebody had to maybe scan that code with a source code scanning tool, and then maybe run the build and the compilation of that code into the actual objects and application artifacts themselves, and then run a bunch of unit tests on that code. And so all these were manual steps and tedious. And Kosuke Kawaguchi, the creator of Jenkins, decided to automate that process. And so he built Jenkins as an automation engine that could do those steps for you. So continuous integration is that process of doing build and test automatically as the first step of the life cycle. We've since then extended the Jenkins platform with something called Jenkins Workflow. And Jenkins Workflow is a plugin for Jenkins that allows it to extend beyond just the continuous integration phase into the full continuous delivery space. So with Jenkins Workflow, Jenkins can now become really your key to continuous delivery. It allows you to do things like create these delivery pipelines that I mentioned, and also execute them and then monitor them as well. And it also integrates with other tools for doing configuration management, so that you can actually do what's called configuration as code, which is a key component of doing continuous delivery. The Jenkins Workflow plugin provides this ability to create these pipelines, as I mentioned, and you can execute as many of them as you need to. It also provides some key aspects of managing the pipelines and key capabilities for these pipelines, things like branching and looping within the pipelines. So this allows you to create complex real-world pipelines where you may need some decision trees in them and go down different paths. You can also restart pipelines. So if something happens in a pipeline gets halted in the middle of it, you can pick it up and restart it with the Workflow plugin. You can also set manual checkpoints. So the idea of continuous delivery, where everything automation takes code from developer to production automatically and does the deployment, that's great, but not every organization may be ready for that. So you may want to have the final stage of going to deployment, something that has a manual checkpoint. And so you can put in manual inputs and manual checkpoints within the Jenkins Workflow plugin and allow you to define these delivery pipelines however you need to. So with Jenkins Workflow running in Jenkins, you can orchestrate and execute these pipelines and provide feedback on how they're performing, what's happening with them. When something fails in a build stage or in a test stage, you'll be alerted with that. We have a capability called Jenkins Workflow Stage View, which is a visualization component that comes in the enterprise version of the CloudBees Jenkins Enterprise. And this Workflow Stage View allows you to visualize the pipeline status. And we'll see this a little bit later in the presentation during the demo. But it allows you to see every pipeline that's being executed and where they're failing if they are, what's the status of each one, how long each stage takes, and you can define exactly what these stages are and how many stages you have, etc. So it's a very powerful capability when you take the core Jenkins platform, which is a very proven automation engine that's been used for 10 years for doing continuous integration. You add to that the Jenkins Workflow capability to do full continuous delivery pipelines. Now you have the platform that allows you to do continuous delivery in your application environment. So Victor, back over to you.
Thank you. Okay, so I think this is a good explanation as to how real the different phases of your continuous delivery pipeline can be automated. But yet there are some of the challenges that might still exist in this situation. Is that throughout the different stages you'll be running a variety of different tests, which are covering multiple quality attributes. For instance, unit testing on the source code level, integration testing, service testing, functional testing. They might also include performance testing, and it is rather, in some cases, a challenge to really understand and get a good view on the quality of the build and of the test results. So the key here is to how do I then still keep track of all the results, and how am I able to manage trends and to spot trends before they become a problem. In some cases, you might want to have a single failing test as a reason to stall the pipeline, but in other cases you might want to set a different quality criteria to proceed until perhaps ultimately onto production, while the software is perhaps not of the highest quality, but is of sufficient quality based on the quality criteria you can set. So with continuous delivery, we are in a realm where test automation is key, where the number of tests is increasing, which is a good thing, where also the variety in different testing tools is also increasing. So we need to be able to manage this really as a central part of the continuous delivery initiative. And so to this extent, XebiaLabs, where we are a leading provider of DevOps and continuous delivery software, we have started development of XL TestView, which basically serves as the quality hub in your continuous delivery pipeline. So this is a product which allows you to define and execute tests across the different test tools you might have. These could be enterprise tools based on, for instance, HP or IBM. They could also include open source tools like Fitness, Cucumber, JBehave, or JMeter or Gatling, different kinds of tools, but then collecting all the results of these different tools, aggregating and visualizing the results. Because more and more trends are important to get insight into the application's quality. It's not just a matter of failing tests, but it's also about spotting trends in terms of the duration, spotting trends in terms of quality bottlenecks. So XL Test really serves as the central hub for quality assurance, allows you for configurable dashboarding, history and reporting of your ever-growing set of test results. By analyzing this complete set, XL TestView allows you to support data-driven release decisions, taking into account all the test results, and also to optimize your testing efforts. For instance, XL TestView can help you identify tests that are passing all the time and are not really providing a quality, let's say, inspiration, or tests that are failing all the time, which you are, well, more or less disregarding, but should take attention to anyhow. So it is a quality hub, a so-called fitness tracker of your continuous delivery pipeline, and really monitors your software's health. So in the next couple of slides, I will introduce a couple of the key features before we then tend to a demo in which we integrate the Jenkins Workflow plugin with XL TestView. So this is an example, a dashboard, which is possible to be created in XL TestView, showing you the different perspectives of your test results. In the top hand, we see, for instance, results of a large functional test suite, covering the various application components of, in this case, a showcase application. So we can directly see which of the tests of the different components are failing, and also we're able to drill down into the individual test results. At the same time, it's not just only the test results at this moment, it is also something about the trends. So the bottom hand shows a duration trend and sudden increase of a duration after running of the automated tests. If your test mass is growing and you're tending towards hundreds or thousands of automated tests, you also need to keep track of how well are my automated tests performing. And sudden increases in the duration could point to performance bottlenecks, could point to failing infrastructure, at least they require action. So monitoring duration of tests is something which is becoming increasingly important in a growing test automation setup. At the same time, a different quality characteristic of your test suite is called the flakiness of your tests. Which tests are passing and failing intermittently? XL TestView allows you to create an overview of the most flaky tests, so the tests that switch from red to green most often, which could pose a reliability risk. Ultimately, if we're able to take go-live decisions based on the results of my automated tests, I really cannot use the flaky tests. So which tests are most flaky? What are possible causes for the flaky test? I can then take away these causes in ensuring a smooth running tests. In this example dashboard on the bottom right-hand side, we show a delta, a comparison with the previous results of having run these tests. So we see in this case that we actually are having a quality increase because we have less failing tests than the previous run. So by collecting all the test results again across different tools in a single system, XL TestView allows you to spot quality trends and identify bottlenecks before they turn out to be. This is an example dashboard in which we also show that it's possible to include a variety of different test results in a single overview. In the top left-hand side, we see a dashboard which shows some test results of performance tests. It shows you the ratio of failed requests per completed requests on a fictitious web service, and it also is able to spot the mean response time. Trends in performance results, let's say a sudden decrease of the responsiveness, could also be then analyzed in order to specify, hey, in some case I reach a certain threshold. At this moment, performance is unacceptable, so that will then result in a failing qualification. Really collecting information across the test results and analyzing and interpreting these. In the bottom side, we show detailed information on the duration of individual tests, in this case of a functional test suite. It could be the case that an increasing duration could also be linked to performance results. So again, in this overview, it's possible to see to make the relation across the different results. Ultimately, it's important to be able to take the right go-live decisions. By analyzing the different test results in XL TestView, it's possible to create a alignment of the different results and to support go-live recommendations. In this overview, we see the different test jobs which might be filled by Jenkins jobs. And what we also see alongside each of the test specifications, we see either a red exclamation mark or a green tick mark, which basically is the result of the qualification that XL TestView performs. So in this case, you might want to say, I would like to qualify a complete test run as passed only when all the tests are green. I do not allow a single failing test. In other cases, you might want to decide that you would allow for a certain percentage of failing tests based on your current status quo. If you don't have a fully optimized continuous delivery pipeline with failing tests, you might want to say, hey, as long as not more tests are tending to fail, then it's okay for me. So this really is a different application and a different way of monitoring quality. At the same time, it is important to also integrate with well-known setups. For instance, a setup by means of which most organizations are running automated tests. In most cases, these organizations are using Jenkins. So XL TestView also comes with a plugin which can be added as a post-build action to your existing jobs in which you run your tests. This will then result in sending the results to XL TestView, in which case they will then show up in the dashboard and which will run for the qualification. So again, XL TestView allows you to collect all the results out of your continuous delivery pipeline, all of your test results, is able to analyze those, is able to spot trends across tools, and is able to provide feedback in terms of the go-live recommendation. So summarizing both of the products and tools we've presented, Dan.
Right, so we talked about Jenkins Workflow, which is a plugin for the Jenkins platform. It really enables you to create, execute, and monitor these continuous delivery pipelines with sufficient complexity so that you can model real-world scenarios in terms of your application development lifecycle. And doing this all in a Jenkins environment that you're probably familiar with, as Jenkins is pretty widely used today.
Right. And at the same time, with XL TestView, you're able to make sense of the test results that you might collect across your different test jobs, across your different test tools. Have a second stage defined, which is focusing on integration tests, performance tests, using different tools. So in the first step, in the build step, we use unit tests, and in the second step, we use a set of Cucumber acceptance tests, and we use a Gatling test, which is focusing on the performance of our application. What we see here as well is that at the same time, we see different stages. And in this case, we see success of each of the builds. So at the same time, this could mean a failing, a passing a job. But in this case, it doesn't say that much of the individual test results. Like the example I gave, it might be possible to accept a certain amount of failing tests before you take your go-live decision. And certainly for the performance test, it's very important to analyze the trend in performance. So in this case, what I will do now is I will kick off a new build of this workflow. And again, here we can see also the demo, the workflow plugin in action. Perhaps Dan, if you want to add something to this.
Right, so as you said, we've set up these pipelines with workflow, and we're looking at workflow stage view, which is showing us the different stages. It shows us how much time is spent in each stage, and it also gives you the ability to pause and restart the pipeline as well. The workflow pipelines are defined in a domain-specific language, and we intentionally have built it this way because A, it allows you to create complex workflows and pipelines, and B, it allows you to define or to store your pipeline definition in source code control, right? So, which is generally a best practice, right? So it allows you to keep everything in source code control so that as your pipelines change over time, you'll be able to keep them updated. And so this domain-specific language is based on Groovy. And that's how you create workflow pipelines, is you write a Groovy script which defines what the different stages are and what the branching and looping that you need is going to have, what plugins you're going to call, etc. So it's kind of a quick overview of workflow and stage view. Okay.
Yeah, so thanks for that, Dan. So what we see now in this case, just kicked off this this build of the workflow. We see results of the build step in which unit tests are being run. We see integration and performance tests, and well, at the same time, what we do is right now moving into each of the jobs. So we have here the main build job, and when I take a look at the configuration of this job, what we've done here is we added the earlier discussed post-build activity, which is sending the results to XL TestView. And what we see over here, we are uploading the results to XL TestView, to the webinar project, to the main build unit tests test specification. Sending them back to XL TestView, in which we show a list of the projects which can be contained in the webinar project. Of course, there's a timeout on the amount of inactivity. Again, tending to projects in the webinar project. We then see the main build unit tests, and in this case, we can think there's something wrong because we see an exclamation mark here saying, "Hey, one test failed." So from that perspective, XL TestView then allows you to show different results, like a bar chart, which then pointing into the failing tests. So again, here's the detailed drill down possibility showing the failed test. So at the same time, tending back to the project overview, we have also added the step to the performance test and also to the cucumber acceptance test. So from that perspective, it is possible then to from the Jenkins Workflow job to then see that the results are never collected. The performance test is also being performed, but still the deploy step hasn't been taken. Basically, the reason for this is seeing that XL TestView is qualifying the results delivered by each of the individual test jobs, and is then performing a qualification all of those combined results. So turning again back to XL TestView, the main reason for not going to the deploy stage is because of the group of all the different tests has, in this case, 2 failing tests, and causing the complete superset of these test specifications also to fail. When we then take a look into the latest build, what we see here in the console output are the different steps which are being run by the Jenkins Workflow plugin. And again here, we see the qualification result. Again, the one test failed, which we could detailedly analyze in XL TestView, being pointed out here, and also a link to dashboards for further analysis. So this is, I think, really an important way to understand how XL TestView can serve as the quality hub across the pipeline. In this case, qualification across all results is delegated to XL TestView. Again, because we need to take into account history of trends, and we can set specific quality criteria in a single perspective, and then it's being then fed back into the workflow plugin of Jenkins, in this case causing it to stall. So now it's important to see whether we can then get a failing or get a successful test. So from this perspective, I will then perform some minor tweaks onto the existing jobs. So of course we are able to using a simple command line switch create no failing tests. And on the XL TestView side, what I will now do, I will meticulously decide that I will lower my quality criteria and remove the complete performance test from the equation. So this one is not taken into account. And then I will then save the results and see what happens if I then kick off the workflow again. So entering the workflow again, kicking it off right now. And what we see now is that some same tests will be performed. Meanwhile, I think it's important to take a look at the way results are being qualified and the way how the integration effect between the Jenkins setup and XL TestView is being created. And Dan earlier mentioned that the Jenkins Workflow plugin makes use of Groovy, and in this perspective, we see actually the Groovy script which is being used for this demo setup. Dan, perhaps you want to elaborate a bit?
Yeah, it's this is a good example of how to write a workflow pipeline in the Groovy domain-specific language. There are certain keywords that are specific to workflow, and so we've defined those to make it easier to create these scripts and make them do what you want them to do. But it gives you a lot of functionality or a lot of capability and flexibility, right? You can do basically whatever you want to in the script, calling different plugins or different jobs and that kind of thing, and doing different logical branches and forking, that kind of stuff. So again, it's gives you a lot of power and allows you to store it in your source code control as well.
Okay, thanks for that. Now let's take a look at the results. And it is, yeah, again, we see that there's a failing qualification. So we don't see that the deploy step is taken, and this is rather interesting because obviously this is the demo effect which we hadn't succeeded. So again, we see one failing test, whereas in fact I would expect that the failing test shouldn't be showing. It's really taken into account. So again, we see a failing test. So let me see if I can retry this again, because I would like to get the failing test out of the equation, obviously. So why not we just see if we can give it another try? Yeah, obviously that was a typo over there. So
there we go. The fun of doing live demos, right?
This is right. This is the demo effect right now. So, well, while this job is running, let me take the opportunity to show you a bit more about the capabilities of XL TestView. Again, here we see the results popping in terms of the qualification. But XL TestView also allows you to create sophisticated dashboards across the different results. So, in this case, we've also created a webinar dashboard, which basically combines and collects different results. So we see a list of the test runs of our main build. On the right-hand side, we can delve into each of the test results and spot the results and drill down. And on the top, at the bottom lower-hand side, we see a trend in the performance tests. So this is a possibility to understand and correlate results from different test tools. So then again, we have unit tests using JUnit. We have performance tests using Gatling. And on the top, bottom right-hand side, we see acceptance test results, which are the result of Cucumber tests. So again, correlating the stuff could point to interesting or important characteristics of your application, of the quality of your application, which then allows you to create or to take adequate measures before they become a bottleneck. So in this case, it did the trick. What we did now is we forced the build step to not produce any failing tests. So in this case, the build number 108 and 107, we had failing tests, which we did not have caused the workflow to stall, because all these results were sent to XL TestView, and then over here we have the qualification request, and then, well, hey, XL TestView says, well, there are more than 0 failing tests, so we qualify as failed, and the deploy step isn't taken. What we just did is, by means of quote-unquote hack, is we caused the build step to produce no failing tests. Results again are sent to XL TestView. The result of the integration test and the performance test also were successful. And then in this gate, the Groovy script makes the call to XL TestView saying, well, hey, what is the qualification of the combining tests? What does XL TestView think of the quality of this release? Are we able to go into production? And yes, we had a deploy, which then resulted in basically take over the world, because we're live. We then have achieved our goal of the continuous delivery perspective. We're able to add value to our customers because we have a keen eye on the quality, which is fed to XL TestView from the different jobs in the Jenkins workflow, and then allows you to really know what you put into production. So this concludes the demo. In this demo, we've shown how to integrate some of the tooling which is currently available and allows you to really make sense of the different test results. And following this, we also attend to the summary of this webinar. So what we see and what we've stressed is the focus on having test automation as an essential part of continuous delivery, focusing on collecting different results of your different test automation jobs. It allows you to get the quality sensors in your continuous delivery pipelines. We've also seen that when we are running more and more tests, using more and more tools, it is important to make sense of the test results, especially when we have more complex pipelines. So again, we've shown a demo with a rather simple setup, but if there are more pipelines, we need to manage those, which can be done by the Jenkins Workflow plugin. But we also need to be able to manage the test results and to make sense of those to really take the realistic go-live decisions. And this is something which can be done by using XL TestView from XebiaLabs. Combining both allows you to truly manage quality as part of your continuous delivery initiative. So for next steps for XL TestView, you're able to visit the website of XebiaLabs.com to get more information, to sign up for a community edition which will be released next week, and for CloudBees and the Jenkins Workflow plugin, obviously you can visit the website of CloudBees.com.
All right, well, thank you, Victor. Victor and Dan, I think you did a fine job. And there's some more information about how to stay informed. I mean, obviously, the best way is go to the website, send them a message, visit it, and, you know, look at social media. We've had some questions come in. The first one's rather interesting. I think it's really a broader question that reaches more into the whole DevOps movement. In terms of engineering effort, what is the advantages, disadvantages between traditional model and this model? Dan, would you like to field that, or Victor?
Yeah, well, we both. I'll take a first shot at it and happy to hear Victor's thoughts as well. So I think that's a good, really interesting question. The engineering effort is different. I mean, I think if you're looking at continuous delivery, then you have an engineering effort in terms of setting it up, right? So there's some upfront work you need to do to define your continuous delivery pipelines, to implement the tooling you need for the whole the whole ecosystem of tooling, including the orchestration engine. And so you have to define, basically, first of all, you start by defining what your application lifecycle is and what are the stages you need to go through and what has to happen. And then you automate that process. So the engineering effort is largely upfront. But once you do that, once you automate it, then the engineering effort to run those pipelines is much, much less than what it had been in the prior model, right? So I think there's a small amount of upfront work, but then you save in the long run. That would be my perspective on it. Victor?
Yeah, thanks. I really like to second that. What we see specifically from a perspective of testing and test automation as part of it. Most organizations which do not heavily rely on test automation as part of continuous delivery really have testing becoming the bottleneck. So, pushing testing late, making testing the end of the development cycle, basically will result in making compromises. So then, like investing in a continuous delivery setup requires some investments up front. The same holds also for test automation, making it part of continuous delivery. So. Let alone talking about the shift in skills needed as part of the modern continuous delivery way. Let's say it's more technical oriented. Also, the testing perspective is becoming more of a technical perspective, pushed towards the development team rather than separate testing persons or individuals which are basically hired to development teams. This is something we see really happening. So initial investment for sure, but again, I also like to add that it's about changing processes, changing development habits, changing skills of the development organization. Thanks, Parker.
Okay, and now we have another one. I think this really goes to Dan. Where is the workflow configured in Jenkins?
Okay, yeah, it's a good question if you're not familiar with Workflow. Workflow is a plugin that you install into your Jenkins environment into your Jenkins server. And once you do that, then workflow pipelines really become a type of job that you can create. So when you go to create a new job, one of the options will be a workflow job. And so then you click that, and then it'll bring up the configuration panel for workflow and allow you to enter your Groovy DSL script which will then be executed.
Okay, and just so everybody knows, we get a lot of questions about what will be available afterwards. Give us a day or two, and all the slides and the whole broadcast will be up on social media, either YouTube, on DevOps.com, or somewhere for you to view. So just come back to DevOps.com, and you'll be able to direct it to a rebroadcast or the slides. The next question: code quality factors, build success, criteria, etc. I don't know if that's real descriptive enough. Can Dan or Victor, can you sort of address that, or need more information?
Yeah, if a little bit more information would be helpful. I think I can make sense of the focus of the question. So code quality is something which is increasingly important from the let's say the maintenance perspective. Finding bugs in easily maintained or better maintained code is less of an issue, rather than doing it in well, poor maintainable code. So what in that perspective, what is important that perhaps as part of the build step, also static code analyzers are part of the quality sensors in the continuous delivery pipeline. And in some cases, you could also set clear quality thresholds there. For instance, a well-known quality metric there could be the cyclometric.
Oh, Victor, let me interrupt you for 1 second. They added a little addition to it. Where are the stage gates defined? Maybe that sort of puts it together. No?
So the stage gates of the code quality, you mean, or?
Yeah, I'm sort of thinking they're tying that all together.
Yeah. So from that perspective, I think this could be done in the first step of a Jenkins workflow, in which we do the build. And there are tools out there which allow you to integrate and to get a keen eye and feedback on the code quality. And at the same terms, when the quality thresholds of code quality are being breached, and XL TestView can give you a perspective on that, but also tools like Sonar or others could do that. It could be a reason for stalling the workflow. Like we discussed, failing fast and failing early is important, because then it allows to be continuously optimizing your pipeline. It makes sense to also include the view on code quality as part of your Jenkins workflow and your continuous delivery initiative.
Okay, thank you. There's one here I'm not sure we can do. Can you demonstrate or explain how the Jenkins Groovy DSL can be stored in source control and then used in the workflow plugin? I don't know if that's possible here. Dan?
Yeah, I don't think we can demonstrate that today, but you can reference the code out of your source control repository from within the configuration settings for workflow.
Okay. What are the other test tools which TestView is supporting?
Yeah, so thanks, Parker. In XL TestView, we've shown right now a setup which includes unit tests, which includes cucumber tests from a functional perspective, and performance tests using Gatling. Apart from these tools, we support basically all tools that are capable of producing XUnit output format, and these include JUnit or the unit testing frameworks for most popular object-oriented languages. At the same time, we also support Appium, which is an increasingly popular framework which allows for multi-device testing. So run your single set of tests across your Android and iOS devices. At the same time, XL TestView also supports other performance testing tools like HP Load Runner, and we are also supporting other HP tools and the more enterprise market. So again, we aim to, with XL TestView, to make it as easy as possible to integrate also proprietary tools, which could be on scripting, or could be on smoke testing, or doing polling aspects, to really be able to integrate with all test results that are out there. So we have XL TestView as an open, extensible framework which allows you to create your plugin for your test tools. And most of these test tools will become available on the XebiaLabs community plugins website, so which they can also be contributed to by the community.
Okay, I'll just keep going. I mean, we're just getting the questions keep rolling in. Continuous delivery would also need to include an environment and service virtualization capability at some point so that integration tests become more automated. Thoughts on how to make this work with Jenkins Enterprise and XL? Interesting question. Anybody?
Yeah, perhaps I can jump into that. So I think well Dan could perhaps give an explanation as to what extent this is the capabilities of the Jenkins Workflow plugin. From the XebiaLabs perspective, apart from our XL TestView product, we also, like I mentioned, we support well, organizations involving in DevOps, including one of our other products, which is called XL Release, which allows you to model the different stages of the continuous delivery pipelines, also including provisioning of environments and doing more, let's say, sophisticated deploys across different environments, and then tearing down the environments and gearing up a new one for a new stage. So yeah, from a continuous delivery perspective, there's more to it just than starting jobs and collecting test results. It's a complete perspective of building your source code, spinning up an environment, deploying to that environment, then running your tests, collecting results, and seeing whether you're able to go to the next phase.
Yeah, I would concur with that, and just to add, from the Jenkins perspective, you know, when you're talking about continuous delivery, and as Victor said, you may have several different environments that you go through, and some of those environments may use service virtualization, which is a very powerful capability and tool today when you're doing application lifecycle stuff, right? Building applications. So Jenkins, certainly integrates and works with several of the service virtualization tools, and so when you have those in your environments, they can be part of the continuous delivery pipelines that you set up. Your applications would need to know how to interact with them as well, obviously, but it's certainly something that we see pretty often today.
All right, thank you. A couple more. Are you running the performance testing in Jenkins slaves, or is it running an application server?
Yeah, so in this case, what we've done in this setup, it is run through Jenkins, also allowing you, for instance, to include the in this case the GetLink plugin to your Jenkins job, which allows you to see some results of that specific job. At the same time, we have vast experience with also running your test load, which could be performance test or functional test, or could be load test or stress test, in running those using quite a number of Jenkins slaves. So either way is possible. In the demo setup we've shown today, we are running a performance test as part of a single Jenkins job, so non-distributed.
Okay, that's great. I mean, I think we have time for one more question. We've taken quite a few. Will the XL TestView plugin be available for open source version of Jenkins?
Yeah, good question. Well, actually, right now the XL TestView plugin is already available on the JenkinsCI.org website, so people can download it and can integrate it into their existing open source version of Jenkins. So we place no restriction as to needing the enterprise version. So it's out there and it's available and it's ready for use.
All right, well, I want to thank everybody for attending. I want to thank Dan and Victor for a great presentation. And with that, we're going to sign off, and be sure to visit the XebiaLabs website and the CloudBees website, and you can find the slides and more information about this presentation over the next 48 hours on DevOps.com. Thank you, everybody, for attending, and have a great day.